I think men are becoming obsolete. Hey y'all! So I've been meaning to make this video since late April. So I actually don't even remember exactly what's in the article. So I'm gonna reread it today and give my thoughts. But I think men are becoming obsolete. Well, I mean, are men becoming obsolete? We're about to find out. So I got this. I got a notification on my phone from USA Today, and this one really caught my eye because it's basically an ethical debate about whether it's okay to whether it's okay to reproduce without an egg and sperm. Um, so this article is called "Beyond IVF in Vitro Fertilization: Scientists Debate Ethics of Human Reproduction Without Egg and Sperm." So this process is called IVG, in vitro gametogenesis. In vitro gametogenesis. It promises to someday provide a cure for many types of infertility. This might be an unpopular opinion, but I don't really believe in IVF. Okay, so I think IVF is extremely unethical. So off rip, I already think this IVG thing is unethical. But here we go. Scientists are getting closer to the possibility of making a new person from skin or blood cells without the need for sex. This approach goes well beyond in vitro fertilization, which combines egg and sperm in a laboratory because it doesn't require natural eggs or sperm. Called in vitro gametogenesis, or IVG, it promises to someday provide a cure for many types of infertility, to slow or even turn off biological clocks, and to enable the kind of embryo selection that sends chills up many spines. In a 3-day meeting last week at the National Academies of Sciences, researchers eagerly discussed their work, advocates laid out their vision for making IVG useful, and ethicists squirmed in their seats. The search for a perfect race and a perfect baby, perfect generation is not science fiction, Amrita Pandey, a sociologist at the University of Cape Town in South Africa, told the group Thursday. The technology for making babies from cells other than eggs and sperm still remains a decade away or more. But now, before science turns possibility into reality, is a good time for the public to consider the implications of IVG, said I. Glenn Cohen, an expert on the intersection of law and bioethics at Harvard Law. So right now, what they're saying is the technology doesn't necessarily exist at the moment. It's in development, but they're getting closer. It'll probably exist within the next 10 years, but right now is the time to regulate the medical industry and discuss the ethics of it and whether they should do it. I don't think so. It's like I literally imagine someone breeding an army, breeding an army in a lab. I don't know, I just don't. I don't see how it can be used for good, I guess. And okay, the reason I think IVF is unethical is because there's so many babies and children in the world who are waiting to be loved, who already exist. And I think to say oh, I want to have my own biological child, it's a little bit selfish. And we as humans are self-serving first, but I guess I would think that you would have love for the other people around you and the people that don't receive it already. But I don't know. There's certainly a lot of publications and a lot of interest in the scientific community, and it's great that we're introducing it to the large community, Cohen said after the first presentations. If people have serious ethical concerns, this is the time to spell them out. In one of the latest advances in the field, Japanese researcher Katsuhiko Hayashi showed in March that he can transform skin cells from adult male mice into healthy eggs. Only a tiny fraction of the mouse eggs he made were viable, but the mice grown from the egg cells are healthy and able to have pups and grandpups of their own. He envisions eventually using this approach to treat infertility in people who have extra sex chromosomes such as XXY or XYY as compared to the typical XX for females and XY for males. It also could allow single-sex couples to have a child who is biologically related to both parents. Okay. Okay. Like I said, I haven't read this in a few months. So that is actually kind of interesting. But like I said, I can't change the game for the gay for I'm a girl, a gay, or a they. I won't tell you which one. I'm a girl and a gay. But I do understand. I get it. I get it. But then I would have to like get like someone being like, "I want my own biological child." So I stand for what I said before, but I do think it's like cool that it could allow this. But I guess the reason I'm really against it is because like I think like the IVF and the IVG process, they're really elitist. So this would only be for like the wealthiest of like single sex couples or like the wealthiest of people with fertility issues. Hayashi also has developed a method of making viable sperm from adult male mouse cells, and he and others are working to mature eggs from adult females, all which fit under the rubric of IVG. My primary wish is to contribute to helping people suffering from infertility, Hayashi said in an interview last month. What I'm doing now is very basic biology. In animals, IVG could be used to conserve species in danger of extinction, said Ain So Hyun, a bioethicist at Harvard Medical School and director of life sciences at Boston's Museum of Science. But whether IVG could be considered safe in humans and how many embryos would have to be sacrificed in the process remains open questions. And while the science may be driven by curiosity, everyone agrees it'll be used to make money from people desperate to continue their biological line or just willing to pay for the offspring of their choice. That's what I said. That's what I said. Okay. Anyway, it's unethical. It is a perversion of the sanctity of procreation as a fundamental aspect of human life, said Ben Herbold, a bioethicist and historian of science at Arizona State University, before the meeting. It makes it into an industrial project that responds to and inspires and cultivates the desire of their future customers. Several startups backed by private venture capital are looking to commercialize the creation of lab-made eggs and sperm, perhaps first in farm animals. One ethical question raised by IVG is who benefits from this kind of work? The child that will be created exists not for its own sake, but for the sake of others, Herbold said. That child is the expression of other people's desires. Okay, so I think a lot of people have children for like the sake of themselves and not for the sake of the child. So I don't think that argument stands. But let's continue. Several people at the conference raised the specter of 90-year-olds Several people at the conference raised the specter of 90-year-olds having offspring in this way, or babies having babies, or long dead people. That would be so wild because you could like use the DNA of someone who's passed away to have children by them. Also, that opens up like, that's really interesting. I guess I'm like thinking a lot about like the legal aspect of it, and like if you can claim like that you're a direct relative or like descendant of someone because you did this, and then you like work your way into their estate or something. That's like kind of crazy. But researchers and ethicists alike agree it's okay to tinker with genes for the sake of curing a sick child. Those genetics won't be passed down to future generations. IVG, that's ableist. But I understand it, but it's also I understand it. But it's also it is ableist to say like. But also I'm like thinking about like my cousin who has sickle cell. Like it would be really good to like remove those genes. But that's not to say that like you're removing that person from existence. You're removing that genetic mutation. IVG doesn't tinker with genetics. It just uses the programs already in place in a cell to give it a different function, turning a. Oh, okay, never mind. So IVG is still not good. IVG doesn't tinker with genetics. It just uses the programs already in place in a cell to give it a different function, turning a cell into a sperm cell, for instance. So that will be like taking a stem cell and making it a sperm cell. But it, like you know how stem cells can become anything, so it wouldn't have to be a. Well, yeah, I guess it could be a stem cell. But I guess like the IVG process, I should finish reading before I make this assumption. But I guess the IVG process will like turn a like I don't know, maybe like a red blood cell into like a sperm cell or something. Let's keep reading to find out. But once this can be done in an unlimited way, people can choose among dozens, hundreds, or thousands of embryos compared with IVF, in which just a handful of embryos are created. The perspective of history does not make the fertility field look good, Herbold said, and the Wild West approach doesn't seem to be changing. In vitro fertilization, for example, was introduced without the standard of clinical trial process. Reproductive technologies have long been a biological, social, legal, and moral experiment, Herbold said. We really still do not understand the subtleties, even of IVF itself, which is 45 years old this year, let alone all the other things we've layered on top of it, he said. A similar non scientific process established the hormonal regimen that women still routinely get to generate eggs for IVF, he said. That's crazy. So, like, for the past 45 years, I'm telling you, IVF is for the rich. Like, it's just an elite process. And for the past 45 years, they've, like, women put themselves through pain to, like, do IVF, and just for it to, like, not work most of the time. And like this process had no clinical trial. Like people that have been doing IVF for the past 45 years and are still doing it, they are the clinical trial. And like I don't think that they realize that. Or maybe some of them do, but I know the majority of people don't. It's quite a fundamental norm that you don't experiment on children, and yet this in vitro cultivation of a technology is also cultivation of desires and of a potential market that at the end of the day fundamentally entails experimentation on children, he said. Pursuing this work also sends a mixed message to families that result from adoption, said Francois Baylis, a philosopher of Dalhousie University in Canada. Pursuing a biologically related child, regardless of the financial, scientific, and ethical costs, devalues families based on other relationships, she said. The public tends to assume scientific. Let me go back to that. I think I talked about that earlier. Like, adoption is not a perfect process. I know that, like, adoption is like low key like human trafficking. Like children should stay with their families if they can, and I don't mean like they should. It should be the mother or the father or the. I don't mean it should be the biological parent. I mean it could be a grandparent. It could be an aunt or uncle. It could be a nibbling that takes care of them. I don't know, like an older one. It, um, but what I mean is that they should stay with their family because they have the best outcomes being with someone that they're familiar with. Um, However, I do think adoption is a better option than IVF, but it's just a really like complex issue. The public tends to assume scientists pursue only worthwhile research, said Katie Hasen, Associate Director of Science for the Center for Genetics and Society, an advocacy group that argues for responsible use of genetic technology. But once something is possible, she said, the presumption becomes, now that we can do it, how can anyone say we should not do it? Meetings like last week's are intended to foster discussion before it becomes too late to stop scientific progress. Dr. Peter Marks, an official with the Food and Drug Administration, laid out the many regulatory hurdles IVG probably would face in the US just to reach the stage of clinical trial. But like we said, IVF is like a full process you can do in the US and it never reached clinical trial. So that doesn't mean that it would stop IVG from becoming a thing. It just probably wouldn't be regulated. Federal funding cannot be used for the creation of embryos, and right now, embryos can be allowed to develop for more than 14 days in the lab, which limits the ability to test their safety, Yoon said. Many conference attendees worried aloud that other countries, perhaps with less scientific and regulatory oversight, will pursue the work first. There's ego and also the structure of incentives in science, Hasten said. That also feeds into arguments like, if we don't do it, X country's going to do it, therefore we should do it first. The profit potential and the push to commercialize these technologies can be a big motivation. To Baylis, the question about pursuing IVG is also one of priorities. There are so many scientists and so much money and time to solve dramatic problems. So that's the end of the article. So, I mean, I know how I feel about IVG. I don't support it, but I also don't support IVF. I think I would love to hear from any of you guys that support IVF and don't support IVG, or from you guys that support both IVF and IVG. I'd also really like love to just hear your thoughts if you don't support either. Like, why not? Your reasons could be totally different from mine. And I also don't want to just sound like some liberal arts graduate. Oh, actually, I don't care. I am a liberal arts graduate. That's who I am. But what I mean to say is like this process could be really helpful to people. Um, However, I don't think it's ethical, and I don't think that it should be pursued much further. But I think I'm not really thinking about all the ways that it could be used positively. Like I'm for IVG if it's used to recreate extinct species. I think that's like super cool. And like endangered species. I think we should use it for that, but not I don't think we should use it for the production of human babies. We're not on the brink of extinction. I think we're okay. And it, like they said, it's separate from the process of removing genetic mutations. So I don't think we should proceed with it on like a human research level, but definitely for like vulnerable animal communities. Yeah. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. Watch the past two videos. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend about me. And let me know what you want to see next. Bye.